You hear Jerome Lightyear talking about his career as a commercial airline pilot. Well, first of all, it costs a lot of money to become a pilot in the UK. I mean, a lot. You need your ATPL, which is the Airline Transport Pilot's Licence, and that costs around £50,000 once you've done all the training. If you do it full-time, you can be qualified in 18 months, but I was lucky enough to have an apprenticeship with British Airways, and they paid for all of my training. It took me 2 years, and I've been flying for them ever since. I've flown nearly 10,000 hours now, and have been to 156 countries and counting. It's the best job in the world. You don't need to have a university degree to become a pilot, but you do need to have good school grades in subjects like maths, English and science, and having a second language is definitely a bonus. I'm half French, so this really gave me an advantage early on. You also need to pass security checks, and that can take a while. They're really careful about who gets a licence, which is a good thing. And I remember there were several people on my course who didn't pass. They just didn't have what it takes, I suppose. Some of them were paying for it themselves too. What a waste of money. And there's a lot of study involved, and that's before you even step foot inside a cockpit. You could be the best student, get the best grades, and then fail the simulator module of the exam. I guess the thought of putting someone's life at risk is pretty scary once you're sat behind the controls, but it actually has nothing to do with fear, if you ask me. You don't think of the passengers when you're getting ready for takeoff. You have too much to think about. By the time you've got your first flight as captain, you'll have flown as co-pilot for at least 1,500 hours, so you know what you're doing. For a short flight, like from Heathrow to Madrid, there isn't even time to go to the toilet. You're working non-stop the whole way. It's only when you've landed and someone opens the door of the cockpit that you remember there are a couple of hundred passengers on board. I've been flying professionally for 10 years now, and I've come to the conclusion that pilots are strange people. They have to be. When you're flying a commercial airliner like a 747, you have a great responsibility. It's very intense work, and your brain releases a lot of adrenaline during each flight. But then, after you've landed safely and gone through airport security, you're soon on your own in a quiet hotel room, and it feels lonely. You could be anywhere in the world, but after a while the hotel rooms start to look the same. But then, the next day, you're back in the cockpit, doing it all again. And that's what I love about it, knowing that every flight will be different, and that you're good at what you do. But travelling all the time definitely puts pressure on your relationships, for sure. Many of my colleagues have been through divorces, actually. It's a shame. Luckily, I have a very understanding wife who I spend a lot of time with when I'm home. She works in air traffic control, as it happens.